You need to go to room 12 now. She didn't wait for his answer. She was already gone. Wade Calloway stood 6'4", 260 pounds of leather and scar tissue. And in 37 years, nobody had ever spoken to him like that and walked away breathing easy. But something in her voice, not fear, not command, something raw and broken stopped him cold right there in the middle of the hospital corridor. He turned, he walked to room 12, he pushed open the door. And what he found inside changed everything he thought he knew about himself. If this kind of story moves you, subscribe and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this one travels. Wade Calloway had not planned on being inside St. Francis Hospital that Tuesday evening. He had not planned on being anywhere near Millbrook, Oklahoma, if truth be told. He had been passing through, that was the word he used in his head, passing through like a weather system that causes damage and keeps moving on his way to meet a chapter brother down in Tulsa who owed him money and an explanation. He had stopped only because the rear tire on his Harley had started pulling soft around mile marker 47, and the service station at the Millbrook exit had a compressor and a kid behind the counter who didn't flinch when Wade's shadow fell across the door. That was already more goodwill than most towns showed him. He filled the tire. He paid cash. He walked back out to the parking lot, and that was when he heard it. Not a scream, not loud enough for that. More like the sound a person makes when they have been trying to stay quiet for so long that something finally breaks through the effort anyway. A half-swallowed sound, desperate. A boy, maybe 8 years old, maybe 9, sitting on the curb at the far end of the parking lot with his arms wrapped around his knees and his face turned down toward the asphalt. Wade stopped walking. He told himself he was not going to get involved. He told himself that the right move was to get on the bike and put Millbrook, Oklahoma in the rearview mirror and be in Tulsa by 10. He told himself that clearly and specifically, the same way a man rehearses an argument he knows he is about to lose. Then he crossed the parking lot. Hey, he said, not loud. He had learned years ago that loud was the wrong register with frightened things. Kids, animals, people who had been handled wrong. The boy's head came up fast. His eyes went wide, went the direction eyes always went when they landed on Wade Calloway for the first time. Straight to the size of him, the tattoos running up both forearms, the cut on his back and with the patches that told a certain kind of story to people who knew how to read them. Wade stopped a good 10 feet away, gave the kid room. You okay? He asked. The boy looked at him for a long time, long enough that most adults would have gotten uncomfortable and filled the silence with something. Wade didn't fill it. He waited. I fell, the boy said finally. Wade looked at him, looked at the way the boy was holding his left arm against his body, looked at the angle of it, looked at the shape beneath the sleeve of his jacket. You fall, or did somebody help you fall? The silence that came back was its own answer. Boss Wade crouched down. He did it slowly, deliberately, the way a person lowers themselves to eye level when they understand that height is a form of power, and power is the last thing useful here. What's your name, kid? A long pause. Tyler. Tyler, he nodded. My name's Wade. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Can you do that? The boy studied him. Children had an instinct about people. Wade had always believed that. They hadn't learned yet to override it with politeness or social pressure. They just felt what they felt and trusted it, or they didn't. Yeah, Tyler said quietly. That arm, did somebody hurt you? Tyler looked down at the asphalt. His jaw tightened in the way that jaw muscles tighten on people who are working very hard not to cry. He said if I told anybody, he'd make sure Mom lost me, Tyler whispered. Wade felt something move through him like a current. Who said that? Tyler shook his head, wouldn't look up. Tyler, Wade's voice was steady, not urgent, not demanding. Look at me. The boy looked up. I need you to hear something. Whatever happened, whatever somebody told you, that is not a reason to sit in a parking lot alone in the dark. You understand me? That arm needs a doctor. I don't want to go to the hospital. I know. He'll find out. He might. Tyler blinked at that. He had probably expected a reassurance, a soft lie. Wade had never been good at soft lies. But here's what I know, Wade said. If that arm is what I think it is, and you sit here all night without somebody fixing it, you're going to be in a lot more pain by morning. And pain makes everything harder to deal with. Everything, including whatever's scaring you right now. Something shifted in the boy's face. Not trust exactly, not yet, but the beginning of something. Will you come with me? Tyler asked. It was the most unexpected sentence Wade had heard in years. He looked at this kid, this 8 or 9-year-old boy, sitting on a cold curb in a gas station parking lot with a broken arm and a secret too heavy for him to carry alone. And something shifted inside Wade Calloway's chest in a way that would take him a long time to name. Yeah, he said, I'll come with you. They walked into St. Francis Hospital at 6:47 in the evening. Wade would remember the time because he looked at the clock on the wall when the automatic doors slid open, and he had the brief and completely irrational thought that he should note the moment, like it mattered, like he understood already on some level. He couldn't fully articulate that this was one of those hours a person carries with them. And the waiting room was the usual kind, plastic chairs in 2 shades of gray, a television mounted high on the wall running a local news segment, 3 other people spread across the room like furniture, a woman in her 60s reading a magazine. Without really reading it, a man in work boots, with his eyes closed and his head tipped back, a younger woman, bouncing a toddler on her knee with the practiced automatic motion of someone who had been doing it for hours. And a man in a security uniform near the front desk who noticed Wade the second the doors opened. His name badge said Paul. He was maybe 55. The kind of person who had probably spent 30 years in a job that taught him to sort people into 2 categories the moment they walked through a door. Wade felt the assessment happen. He had felt it 1,000 times. He watched Paul's shoulders square up slightly, watched him shift his weight forward, and Wade just walked Tyler straight to the desk. Kid needs to see someone, he said to the nurse behind the counter. His arm's not right. The nurse, her badge said. Brooke leaned forward slightly to look at Tyler. Something moved across her face, the particular kind of recognition that medical professionals develop when they have seen something too many times. Hi there, she said to Tyler, her voice shifting into a register that was careful and warm at once. What happened, sweetheart? He fell, Wade said, because Tyler's voice had gone somewhere. Brooke looked at Wade. He looked back. Something passed between them. Not words, not signals exactly. More like a shared understanding that the word fell was a placeholder for something neither of them was going to say in the middle of a waiting room. Let's get him back and take a look, she said. Can I ask, are you family? No, Wade said. Friend of the family. Wade looked down at Tyler, who was looking up at him. Something like that, Wade said. Paul, the security guard, had moved 3 steps closer by that point. Close enough that Wade could hear the slight adjustment of his breathing. Close enough that it was meant to be felt. Wade turned his head and looked at Paul with an expression that communicated exactly nothing, which was somehow more unsettling than anything else might have been. Paul stopped moving. They took Tyler back to room 12. Wade was told he would need to wait. He sat in the plastic chair nearest the hallway that led to the examination rooms. He sat with his elbows on his knees and his hands loosely linked, and he did not pull out his phone. He did not watch the television. He looked at the floor, and he thought about a parking lot and a kid who asked if he would come with him. He was there for 40 minutes before Brooke came back through the swinging doors with a look on her face that rewired the temperature of the room. So she walked directly to him. She didn't sit. She leaned down slightly, lowering her voice to a register that wouldn't carry. The arm is broken, she said, but that's not the only injury. Wade looked at her steadily and waited. There are older bruises, Brooke said, healing and some scarring, consistent with... She stopped, drew a breath. Tyler isn't saying what happened. He keeps asking if you're still here. I'm still here. I know. I told him. She held his gaze. Mr. Calloway, I'm obligated to contact authorities. I want you to understand that's already happening. But right now, Tyler is asking for you specifically, and I need to make a judgment call about what's best for that kid in the next 10 minutes. She straightened. So I'm asking, are you going to be a problem for him, or are you going to be what he needs right now? It was the most direct question anyone had asked Wade Calloway in a long time. Take me back, he said. Tyler was sitting up in the hospital bed with his left arm wrapped in a temporary splint and his face carrying the particular blankness of a child who has used up all their available expression and hasn't found any new ones yet. When Wade came through the door, something in the boy's face broke back open. You're still here, Tyler said. Told you I would be. Wade pulled the plastic chair to the side of the bed and sat in it. It was too small for him by a considerable degree. He didn't mention it. Tyler, he said quietly, you don't have to tell me anything, but I want to ask you something. The boy looked at him. Is your mom okay? Tyler's face changed. The blankness cracked straight down the middle. She's in the hospital, he whispered. Different hospital. She got hurt bad and they took her. Marcus said it was her fault. He said she made him do it, and then he told me. Tyler's voice locked up. He swallowed hard. He told me if I said anything, he'd make sure I got put away somewhere. She'd never find me. Wade had spent his life around men who made a science of violence. He had seen it in many forms and many faces over many years. He was not a man given to easy anger. That was a young man's luxury, and he had grown out of it. But sitting in that plastic chair in room 12, listening to Tyler's voice carry those words, Wade felt something rise through him that took everything he had to keep from showing on his face. Marcus, he said carefully. Who is Marcus to you? Mom's boyfriend, Tyler said. He's been there almost 2 years. 2 years. Wade looked at the healed scars Brooke had mentioned without saying the word. He looked at the way Tyler held himself, the particular learned stillness of a child who had spent a long time trying to take up less space. He looked at the question the boy had just asked, did I do something bad? And he felt the answer forming before he had the words. Tyler, he said, where is Marcus now? The boy's shoulders went rigid. I don't know. He dropped me in that gas station. He said to wait and he'd come back. Wade kept his voice perfectly level. He's not going to come back tonight, he said, and he is not going to touch you again. I need you to understand that. You can't promise that, Tyler said. Not argumentative, just tired. The tired of someone who has heard promises. You're right, Wade said. I can't promise that all by myself, but there are people in this hospital right now who can make that a legal fact. And I'm going to sit right here in this chair until they do. Tyler stared at him for a long time. Why, he asked. It was such a simple word, and it landed with the weight of everything this child had learned to expect from the world. But Wade thought about the answer. He could have given a clean one, something simple and reassuring. But he had made a judgment about Tyler the moment he sat down on that parking lot curb that this was a kid who had been lied to with comfortable words and deserved the uncomfortable truth. Because somebody should have stayed for me, Wade said, and they didn't. The words sat between them in the small room. Tyler looked at him with the particular focus of a child trying to solve something. Who didn't stay for you, he asked. Wade exhaled slowly. That's a long story for another time. But something bad happened to you too. Yeah, Wade said, something bad happened to me too. Tyler nodded slowly as if this information reorganized something important. Then he said very quietly, does it get better? And Wade Calloway, man who had been called frightening, unpredictable, dangerous, a liability, a problem, sat back in his too small plastic chair and gave the boy the most honest answer he had. Some days, he said, some days it gets a lot better. Outside in the corridor, Brooks stood beside Officer Reeves with a yellow legal pad and a phone and the patient, determined look of someone doing their job with everything they had. We've run the name Marcus Webb, Reeves said, quiet enough that his voice didn't carry. Outstanding warrant in Creek County. Domestic. This is not the first time. Brooks' jaw tightened. The mother is at Mercy General on the west side, Reeves continued. She's stable. She's been asking about the boy. He doesn't know she's stable, Brooks said. I know. She looked through the small window in the room door. Through it, she could see the back of Wade's massive frame in the plastic chair and Tyler's face above the hospital blanket, and the two of them talking in the particular careful way of people who have decided to trust each other against the available evidence. Who is he? Reeves asked, nodding at Wade. He brought the boy in, Brooks said. He know the family. He found Tyler sitting alone in a gas station parking lot with a broken arm. Reeves looked at her. He just stopped. He just stopped, she said. They were both quiet for a moment. Hell of a thing, Reeves said finally. Yeah, Brooks said. Hell of a thing. Inside room 12, Tyler had stopped crying. His eyes were still red at the edges, but the blanket in his lap had settled and his shoulders had come down from where they had been pressed up toward his ears. He was watching the television now. Some nature program with slow-moving ocean footage, and Wade was still in the chair beside him when Brooke came back through the door. She looked at Wade over Tyler's head with the particular careful look of someone managing several things at once. "Tyler," she said gently, "can I talk to my friend outside for just a second?" Tyler looked at Wade with a flash of something that moved too fast across his face to catch cleanly. "I'll be right back," Wade said. "2 minutes. You promise a beat." "2 minutes," Wade said again. "I'm going to stand right outside that door." In the corridor, Brooke turned to him. She had a controlled professional composure that Wade could see required active maintenance right now. Underneath it, she was angry, not at him, at the situation, at the pattern, at the way this particular story kept happening to children who deserved better. "His mother is stable," she said. Wade closed his eyes for 1 second. "He doesn't know." "No, I'm going to tell him in a minute. But first I need to know something." She looked at him directly. "When all of this is sorted, when the officers do their work and Tyler is taken to a safe placement, what are you going to do?" Wade frowned. "What do you mean?" I mean, that kid in there has attached to you in the last 90 minutes in a way that is completely understandable given what he's been through. He doesn't have a lot of anchors right now. And when you walk out of here tonight—" "I'm not walking out yet," Wade said. Brooke stopped. "He asked me to stay," Wade said simply. "I said I would." She looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Calloway." "Wade." "Wade?" She held his gaze. "You understand this isn't going to be quick. There are going to be police and social services and statements, and all of it is going to take time." "I've got time," he said. "You were passing through. Plans change." Brooke looked at him with the slightly unfocused expression of someone recalibrating. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay." She went back in to tell Tyler about his mother. Wade stood outside the door and listened to the boy's breath catch and release in the long wave of relief that comes when you find out the worst thing you feared is not completely true. Not fixed, but survivable. He stood there in the corridor with his back against the wall and his arms crossed over his chest, and he thought about a parking lot curb and a question, "Will you come with me?" and the fact that he had said yes before he had thought about it. That was probably significant. He was still thinking about it when Paul, the security guard, came to stand a careful distance away. Not threatening, more like a man who has revised a first impression and doesn't quite know what to do with the revision. "You need anything?" Paul asked stiffly. Wade looked at him. "Coffee," he said, "if there's any." Paul nodded once, walked away. Came back 4 minutes later with a paper cup. Wade took it. "Thanks." Paul stood there a moment, the residue of his earlier assumptions still on him, somewhere looking for a way to rearrange it. "Good thing you stopped," he said finally. Just that, then he went back to his station. Wade drank the coffee. It was bad coffee, burnt and thin and overbrewed. He drank every drop. And then he leaned back against the wall outside room 12, and he waited the way he should have waited in his own childhood, the way someone should have waited for him, certain steady present. While inside the room, a boy slowly learned that the people who were supposed to protect him had failed, and that sometimes in the wreckage of that failure, a stranger walks into a parking lot and changes the entire direction of a night. Joey. The coffee was gone and the paper cup was crushed flat in Wade's hand before he realized he'd done it. Down the corridor, a door banged open and 2 officers came through with the particular energy of people who have just received information that accelerated their evening. Wade watched them without moving. He had a long practice of watching law enforcement from a careful distance. Old habit, not guilt, just survival math. Officer Reeves broke from the group and came directly to him. "Marcus Webb just showed up at the gas station," Reeves said low and fast, asking the attendant if he'd seen a kid. Wade straightened off the wall. "The kid that told him to wait," Reeves said. "Webb's on foot. We've got a unit on the way, but he knows the area." He looked at Wade with the frank assessment of someone who had quietly revised his opinion over the last hour. "I want you to stay in that room with Tyler until we confirm Webb is in custody. I don't think he'd come here, but I'm not making assumptions tonight." "He's not getting near that room," Wade said. It was not a question. It was not a threat. It was simply information delivered in a tone that left no interpretive room. Reeves looked at him for a beat. "No," he said. "He's not." Wade pushed off the wall and went back through the door to room 12 without another word. Tyler looked up immediately. The nature program was still running on the television, some slow underwater sequence, but Tyler wasn't watching it. He had been watching the door. "Everything okay?" the boy asked. "Getting there," Wade said. He sat back down in the plastic chair, settled his weight into it like he was planning to stay until the chair gave out. "How's the arm?" "Hurts less than before." Tyler paused. "They gave me something." "Good." A beat of quiet. "You heard what the nurse told me," Tyler said. It wasn't a question. Wade looked at him. "About your mom. About her being okay." Tyler's voice was careful around the word okay, like he wasn't sure it fit yet. "She's not okay though, is she?" "She's alive," Wade said. "And she's asking for you, oh. Both of those things are real." Tyler pulled at a loose thread on the blanket. He put her in the hospital before, twice. She always said it was an accident. Wade didn't say anything. "Did you believe stuff like that?" Tyler asked. "When you were a kid, the accident stuff." On this show, the question landed with more precision than the boy probably intended. "For a while," Wade said. "Yeah, for a while I believed whatever I was told because I didn't have anything else to measure it against." "When did you stop?" "When I got old enough to see that accidents don't have the same shape every time." Tyler processed that with the serious face of a child working through something that is simultaneously too old for him and too familiar not to understand. "Marcus isn't coming back tonight, is he?" Tyler said. Wade held his gaze. "No." "Did they get him?" "They're working on it." "But he was looking for me." It was not a scared statement, more like a fact being sorted. "The nurse thinks I don't know things. I hear more than people think I do." Yeah, Wade leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. "Tyler, listen to me. Whether they have him right now or not, you are in this room and nobody is coming through that door without getting through me first. You understand?" Tyler looked at him. "Why does that matter to you?" he asked. The question wasn't rude, it was genuinely bewildered, like a mathematical problem he kept running and not arriving at the correct answer. "You don't know me. You didn't even know my name 2 hours ago." Wade thought about it the way he thought about things that required honesty. Slow, direct. "Because the first time I saw you," he said, "you were sitting on a curb trying to carry something you were never supposed to carry alone. And I recognized that." He let the words settle. "I've been that kid, not in the same way, but close enough." Tyler stared at him. "Your dad?" the boy asked quietly. "My father," Wade said, and the way he said the word made clear how little warmth he assigned to it. He was a big man who thought size was the same as authority. "Took me a long time to figure out they're not the same thing at all." "Did he hit you, Duane?" "Yeah." "Did you tell anyone?" "Who was I going to tell?" Wade said it without bitterness. "Just fact. In those days in that town, you didn't say anything. You learned to read the room, you learned when to disappear, you learned to make yourself small, even though you were the biggest kid in your grade." Tyler let out a long breath. "That's what I do," he said. "I make myself small." "I know," Wade said. "I saw it in the parking lot, the way you were sitting." "Doesn't work, though," Tyler said. "Making yourself small. It doesn't make them stop." "No," Wade said. "It doesn't." Another beat of quiet. The television murmured something in the background. Neither of them paid it any attention. "Wade," Tyler said. "Yeah. I'm glad you stopped." Wade looked at the floor for a moment. Then he looked back at the boy. "Me too, kid," he said. "Me too." Outside in the corridor, the temperature of the evening shifted again without warning when Reeves came back through the swinging doors and walked straight to Brooke with a tight, controlled expression that meant something had happened. Brooke read his face in an instant. "What?" Webb walked in through the ER entrance. Reeves said low and clipped. "Front desk flagged it. We've got 2 officers moving now, but he's asking for Tyler by name. He's telling staff he's the stepfather and he's got a right to." Brooke was already moving before he finished the sentence. She went to room 12 first. She pushed the door open and looked at Wade with a single direct look that delivered the entire situation in under a second. Wade was on his feet before she said a word. "Stay with him," she said. "Don't have to tell me twice." She pulled the door closed. Wade turned to Tyler, who had read every single thing that had just happened across the 2 adults' faces with the terrifying accuracy of a child trained by necessity to read danger in body language. "He's here," Tyler said. "Not a question." His voice had gone flat. "He's not getting back here," Wade said. "You can't—" "Tyler!" Wade positioned himself between the door and the bed. Not dramatic, not performative, just a very large man standing in a specific place on purpose. "You hear me?" The boy's breathing had gone quick and shallow. Years of fear, physical and ancient, moving through him without his permission. "Breathe," Wade said. "Oh, just like that. I'm not moving." Tyler breathed, shaky at first, then slower. In the corridor, the sound of raised voices. A man's voice, controlled but with an edge underneath it that people use when they're accustomed to getting what they want by sheer insistence. "I have every right to see my son. I don't know who called you people, but this is a family matter, and I am his legal guardian, and—" Brooke's voice cutting across it. "Sir, I need you to stop right there. I'm not stopping anywhere. I came here to see Tyler, and I'm not leaving without— You're not going anywhere near that child." Her voice had gone to a register Wade hadn't heard from her yet, clean and hard and certain the way voices get when the softness has been deliberately set aside. "There are 2 police officers walking toward you right now, and I suggest you listen very carefully to what they have to say." A pause, then the man's voice dropped. "I don't know what that kid told you, but he lies. He's been lying since—" "Don't." Brooke again. One word. The kind that closes a door. Wade stood in the center of room 12 and listened to all of it and kept his eyes on Tyler's face. The boy was watching him with an expression that was fear and something else layered underneath it. Something Wade recognized because he had felt it himself at that age in a different room waiting to find out which way the evening was going to fall. Hope. Terrifying, fragile, not yet trusting hope. The voices in the corridor got further away. Then there was the particular sound of a situation being managed, and then it went quiet. Brooke came back in. "He's in custody," she said. She exhaled once, and it carried the weight of the last 20 minutes compressed into a single breath. Creek County warrant was enough. "They're taking him now." Tyler said nothing. He sat very still. Then his face did something complicated and private that had nothing to do with the relief yet. It was the face of someone who has been braced for impact for so long that the removal of the threat doesn't feel like safety. It feels like a trick. "Tyler," Brooke said gently. "He's gone." "For now," the boy said. "For a long time," she said. Tyler looked at Wade. Something passed between them that didn't require words. The acknowledgement of people who have lived in by uncertainty long enough to know that for a long time is the best version of forever you can reasonably hope for, and that it's enough, that it has to be enough, that you take it and you breathe and you let it be enough for tonight. "Okay," Tyler said finally, very small, very quiet. "Okay," Wade said back. Anita Green arrived 20 minutes later with a canvas tote bag over one shoulder and the calm, purposeful manner of a woman who has done difficult work for a long time and found a way to do it without losing the human center of it. She was the on-call social services coordinator, and Brooke had called her 40 minutes ago, which meant she had known before the confrontation in the corridor, had gotten in her car, while it was still unresolved, had driven across town on a Tuesday evening because a child needed her. Wade watched her come in and introduce herself to Tyler, and found himself reassessing another first impression in one evening, which was becoming a pattern. "Tyler," Anita said, sitting in the chair Brooke had pulled up on the other side of the bed. "I know tonight has been really hard. I know there are a lot of adults coming in and out of this room and asking you things, and it probably feels like a lot." Tyler nodded once. "I want to tell you what's going to happen next," she said. "Is that okay?" "Yeah. But tonight you're going to stay here at the hospital because your arm needs watching and because we want to make sure you're safe and rested. There's going to be an officer outside this hallway all night. Not because anything bad is happening, because we want you to be able to sleep without worrying." She paused, giving him a moment. "And tomorrow when your mom is strong enough, we're going to figure out how to get you two in the same place." Tyler's throat moved. "She really wants to see me?" he asked. "She has been asking about you since they brought her in," Anita said. "That's the first thing she said when she was conscious. She asked where you were." Something cracked open in Tyler's face then. Not sadness, not exactly relief. Something more like the moment a person sets down something heavy that they've carried so far that they forgot it had weight. He didn't cry. He was past that for the moment. He just nodded with the slow certainty of someone recalibrating their entire understanding of the evening. Okay, he said again. That word had become his anchor. Okay, the smallest possible unit of forward motion. Anita stayed with Tyler while Brooke came back out to the corridor where Wade had retreated to give the room space. He was leaning against the wall again, his default position, the posture of a man who doesn't expect to belong anywhere specific and accommodates that fact by taking up the neutral ground. Brooke leaned against the wall beside him. Not beside him the way someone stands beside a friend, the way someone stands beside someone they've been through something with and can't quite return to treating as a stranger. You know what's strange, she said. Wade waited. I've been a nurse for 14 years, she said, and I have seen a lot of people come through those doors. A lot of people who said they'd stay and didn't. A lot of people who said the right things and meant approximately none of them. She looked at her hands. And then there's you, who didn't say anything particularly right, who barely said anything at all. And somehow that kid in there trusts you more than anyone he's met tonight. Kids can tell, Wade said. Tell what? Whether you mean it. He shifted slightly. Adults learn to fake it. Kids haven't finished learning that yet, so they still feel the difference. Brooke considered that for a moment. Do you have kids? She asked. No. Ever want them? It was a personal question, and she seemed to know it was a personal question and asked it anyway, with the directness of someone who has spent an evening in close proximity to real things and lost patience for the surface variety. Didn't think I had any business having them, Wade said, given what I came from. Brooke turned her head to look at him fully. That's not how it works, you know. What isn't? The idea that because something was done to you, you'll do it to someone else. It's not automatic. It's not inevitable. Her voice was quiet but firm. The fact that you're standing in this hallway right now, instead of halfway to Tulsa, tells me something about how inevitable it actually is. Wade said nothing for a moment. Then he said, my brother thinks I can't help myself getting into things. Your brother sounds smart. He'd be pleased to hear you say that. The ghost of something close to a smile passed across Wade's face. It was brief, but it was there. My old man used to drink, he said then, and the way he started the sentence, sudden, unprompted, was the way people say things when they have been holding them long enough, and the evening has created conditions for letting them down. Used to break things when he got angry. Sometimes furniture, sometimes people, and every time somebody saw it, neighbor, teacher, whoever, they'd say the same thing afterward. He paused. Not my business, Brooke said softly. May, he looked at her. You've heard that before. I've heard it my entire career, her jaw tightened once. The thing that allows it to keep happening. Not the men doing it, the silence of everyone else. One day you figure out that silence is how those men survive, Wade said. Not fists, not fear, silence. The corridor hummed around them, fluorescent lights, distant footsteps, the systemic quiet of a hospital at work. What happened to you? Brooke asked. Eventually, I got big enough that he couldn't hit me anymore, Wade said. It was such a plain sentence. So simple it should have been small. But it wasn't. It was the summary of a childhood in 8 words, and it carried every one of those years inside it. Brooke heard all of it. She didn't offer him anything sentimental. She didn't say she was sorry in the reflexive way people say it when they don't know what else to say. She just looked at him steadily, the way you look at someone when you're actually seeing them, and after a moment she said, I'm glad you got big. Wade looked at her. I mean that, she said, because a smaller version of you doesn't stop in that parking lot tonight. He didn't have an answer for that. He looked down at the floor. He stayed quiet for a moment in the way people stay quiet when something has reached them that they weren't prepared to be reached by. Inside room 12, Tyler laughed. It was sudden and quiet and entirely genuine. Something Anita had said, or something on the television, the specific surprised laugh of a child who forgot for a second that they were supposed to be devastated. Both Wade and Brooke turned toward the sound at exactly the same moment. And something in the corridor shifted. The weight of the evening didn't disappear, but it rearranged itself slightly, making room for the possibility that some things were going to be all right. Not everything, not immediately, but some things, the important things. When you first walked in, Brooks said, not looking at him, now looking at the door to room 12. Paul was ready to call for backup. Paul's not the first, Wade said. He brought you coffee. Worst coffee I've ever had. He made it himself. The machine's broken. Wade made a sound that might have been a laugh in a less serious context. Tyler told Anita you were a superhero, Brooks said. Wade shook his head slowly. That kid needs better heroes. No, Brooks said, and her voice had changed, gone quieter, more certain. I think he just needed one that stayed. Wade felt those words find somewhere to land inside him that he wasn't expecting them to reach. He didn't say anything. He looked at the wall across from him, and he thought about every version of himself that had walked away from things, not because he was cruel, not because he didn't feel them, but because walking away was what he had been trained by his life to do. Keep moving. Don't attach. Don't become someone's problem, and don't let anyone become yours. He thought about Tyler's face when he came back through that door, and the boy said, "You're still here," with a voice that contained a lifetime of expecting the opposite. He thought about a parking lot and a question, "Will you come with me?" and the fact that he had said yes. I need to call my brother, he said finally. Brooke nodded. There's a family room at the end of the hall. He pushed off the wall, took 2 steps, then stopped. Is she going to be okay? He asked without turning. Tyler's mother. A pause. She has a long road, Brooke said carefully, but she's asking for her son. People who are asking for something they love, they tend to fight harder. Wade nodded once, kept walking. He found the family room at the end of the corridor. Empty. One lamp in the corner. He sat down on a couch that was slightly better than the plastic chairs, and he took out his phone and called Danny. It rang 4 times. Danny always let it ring 4 times, which had annoyed Wade for years, and tonight felt like the most familiar sound in the world. What did you break? Danny answered. Nothing, Wade said. A beat. Danny knew his brother's voice. Where are you? He asked. St. Francis Hospital in Millbrook. Are you hurt? No. Is somebody else hurt? Wade leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees. Listen, he said. I need to tell you something, and I need you to not make it weird. Danny was quiet in the attentive way that meant he was already making it weird internally, but had the good sense not to say so yet. I stopped for a kid, Wade said. Found him in a parking lot. Broken arm, worse than that. He exhaled. I brought him to the hospital, and I've been here a few hours, and there's been some, he searched for the word, developments. Developments, Danny repeated. His mother's at Mercy General. His stepfather just got arrested in the ER. Social services is here. The kid's got nowhere to go overnight, and the social services woman is working on placement, but he's scared and Wade stopped. He's 8 years old, Danny. A long pause from Danny's end. Wade, Danny said slowly, what are you asking me? Carol still have that guest room. Another pause, longer this time. Then Danny said, without any of the comedy he usually used to survive difficult moments, I'll call her right now. Wade closed his eyes for 1 second. Don't make it weird, he said. Too late, Danny said, and then quieter. You did good, Wade. Wade opened his eyes. He looked at the lamp in the corner. Tell Carol I'll explain everything when I get there, he said. Take your time, Danny said. We'll be up. Wade ended the call. He sat in the family room for another minute, not thinking about anything specific. Just sitting, letting the evening settle around him in the particular way evenings settle when they have asked more of you than you expected to give. Then he stood up. He walked back down the corridor. He stopped outside room 12. Who are you? Through the small window in the door, Tyler was talking to Anita with his hands moving, explaining something, gesturing with the arm that wasn't splinted, the animated movement of a child who has found a moment of ordinary lightness in an extraordinary night. Wade watched him for a moment. Then he pushed the door open and went back in. Tyler looked up. Thought you left, he said immediately, the reflex of it, the speed. Told you I'd be back, Wade said. He sat down in the plastic chair. 2 minutes. I said 2 minutes. Tyler looked at him for a beat. Then something in his face unclenched. Okay, he said. Okay, Wade said back. And outside, the October wind moved through the parking lot and stirred the leaves, and the night kept going. The way nights do forward, always forward, whether you're ready or not. But inside room 12, there was something that had not been there 2 hours ago, when a boy sat on a curb and asked a stranger to come with him. There was someone still there. Anita Green had been doing this work for 19 years, and she had developed a particular skill that nobody taught in any training, and no manual described the ability to read a room, not by what people said, but by what they did with their bodies when they thought nobody was watching. She watched Wade Calloway sit back down in that plastic chair, and she watched Tyler's shoulders drop by approximately 2 inches, and she filed that information away in the part of her mind that made decisions about children's safety. Then she excused herself and stepped into the corridor and called her supervisor. I need a ruling on something, she said. We've got a 9-year-old mother is at mercy general father figure, just got arrested on a domestic warrant. Standard placement would be the Hendersons on the east side. She paused. But there's a complication. What kind of complication? The kind that weighs 260 and has a Hell's Angel patch on his jacket, she said. And somehow in the span of 3 hours has become the only person on earth that child will look at without flinching. Silence on the other end. Anita, I know. You know protocol. I know protocol, she agreed. I'm also looking at a kid who just watched his stepfather get arrested in the ER hallway and is currently sitting calmly in a hospital bed because a biker from Tulsa is in the room with him. I'm telling you what I see. What I see is the only stable attachment this child has made in the last 3 hours. More silence. Then her supervisor said, What are you proposing? I'm not proposing anything yet. I'm reporting what I observe. What I observe is that separating them tonight, right now, in the next hour, could undo a significant amount of progress we've made with Tyler's emotional state. She kept her voice even. Professional. I want flexibility in how tonight goes. That's all I'm asking. A long pause. Keep me updated every hour, her supervisor said. Every hour, Anita confirmed. She ended the call and stood in the corridor for a moment with the phone in her hand and the weight of 19 years of making these calculations pressing quietly against her chest. Then she went back into room 12 and sat down and looked at the man in the plastic chair and the boy in the hospital bed, and she made a decision that was not strictly protocol, but was, she believed, exactly right. Wade, she said. He looked at her. Tyler's placement for tonight is being sorted, she said carefully, but there are some options I want to talk through with both of you. Tyler went still. The specific stillness of a child who has learned that options presented by adults in official positions usually means something is about to change in a way he won't like. I'm not going somewhere alone, Tyler said immediately. Flat, certain. Tyler, I'm not. His voice didn't waver. 9 years old with the resolve of someone twice that. I'll go wherever, but not alone. Anita looked at Wade. Wade looked back at her with an expression that was complicated and aware, and communicating several things simultaneously, the primary one being that whatever she was about to say, he had already decided his answer. I called my brother, he said, before she could speak. He's got a guest room. His wife, Carol. She's good people. If Tyler needs somewhere tonight that isn't, he stopped, started again. Somewhere that feels less like a system and more like a house. Danny's 15 minutes from here. Tyler turned to look at Wade with the full attention of someone hearing something unexpected. You did that? The boy asked. Made the call about 20 minutes ago, Wade said. For me. You know any other 9-year-olds in this room? Tyler stared at him. Then he looked down at the blanket in his lap. His jaw was working in the quiet way that meant something was moving through him that was too big for immediate expression. I don't know your brother, he said finally. Very quiet. No, Wade said, but I do, and I'm going to be there. Anita watched this exchange with the careful attention of someone whose entire job was knowing when an attachment was real versus performed. She had seen adults perform care in front of children for 19 years. She knew what it looked like. The slight miscalibration of the timing, the way the eyes didn't quite match the words, the performance of warmth that is fundamentally about the adult's own comfort rather than the child's. This was not that. This was a very large, very scarred man who had stopped his motorcycle on a Tuesday evening and followed a thread of instinct all the way into a hospital room and was now seemingly, without quite having planned any of it, arranging the infrastructure of a safe night for a child he had met 3 hours ago. She had one more call to make, but she already knew what she was going to recommend. And the paperwork took 40 minutes. It always took 40 minutes. Anita had long ago made peace with paperwork the way you make peace with weather. It is a condition of the work, not the work itself. She filled out forms at the nurse's station while Brooke updated Tyler's charts, and Officer Reeves completed his own documentation at the other end of the corridor. It was Reeves who came to her first. DA's office confirmed, he said, setting a folder on the counter. Marcus Webb has 3 prior domestic incidents in 2 counties. 2 of them pled down. The third was dismissed when the complaining witness, Tyler's mother, recanted. He kept his voice neutral, but there was something underneath it. The particular controlled frustration of law enforcement that has watched a system fail the same people repeatedly. They're not letting it go this time. Between the boy's statement, the physical evidence, the warrant, and the mother's condition, the DA said this one sticks. Anita looked up from the paperwork. How bad is the mother? Reeves paused. Fractured orbital socket, 3 cracked ribs, some internal bruising they're still evaluating. He said it the way people report things they need to report without letting themselves feel them until later. She's stable. She's going to recover. But it was deliberate. Anita absorbed that, set her pen down for a moment, picked it back up. Tyler doesn't know the extent of it, she said. No. We'll manage that carefully. Yeah. Reeves glanced down the corridor toward room 12. The big guy Calloway, you run him. Anita had. Standard procedure. Clean for 6 years, 2 prior convictions, aggravated assault in 2009, disorderly conduct 2014, both related to bar incidents. Nothing since. Reeves considered that. 6 years is a long time. It is, you see. She agreed. He any danger to the kid? Anita thought about what she had observed in that room for the better part of 2 hours. The steadiness, the patience, the way he talked to Tyler, not the way adults talk to children when they're performing attentiveness, but the way people talk to each other when they've decided the other person deserves the truth. No, she said. He is not a danger to that child. Reeves nodded slowly. Hell of a night. They mostly are, Anita said, and went back to her forms. Back in room 12, something had shifted in the texture of the silence. Tyler had been quiet for a while, not the earlier silence of fear or exhaustion, but the different quiet of a person processing. His eyes were tracking the television without really watching it. His good hand was flat on the blanket. The splinted arm rested against a pillow Brooke had arranged at a careful angle. Wade was doing what he did, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, not filling the quiet, just occupying it. Tyler spoke first. Do you think she knows? He asked. Your mom. Yeah. He didn't look away from the television. That I tried to get help. Do you think she knows I didn't just stay quiet this time? Wade thought about it honestly. I think she's going to find out, he said, and I think it's going to mean a lot to her. What you did tonight took guts. I didn't do anything, Tyler said. I just sat on a curb. You sat on a curb instead of going back to Marcus, Wade said. That's not nothing. That's a choice. You made it at 9 years old with a broken arm and a head full of everything he'd told you would happen if you talked. And you made it anyway. Tyler finally looked at him volume. I was so scared, he said, like a confession, like something he'd been keeping back. I know. Like really scared. Not just a little. Tyler, being really scared and doing it anyway, that's what brave actually is. The movies get it wrong. They show brave as not scared. Real brave is terrified and moving forward anyway. The boy absorbed this with the focused seriousness he brought to everything Wade said, measuring it against his own experience, checking it for truth. Were you scared tonight? Tyler asked. When he came. Marcus. No, Wade said. And then because honesty mattered more than impression management. But I've had more practice not being scared of men like Marcus. When I was your age, someone like him scared me plenty. Tyler nodded slowly. Your dad. My dad. But you got past it. Got through it, Wade said. There's a difference. Past it means it's gone. Through it means you carry it, but it doesn't drive. Tyler thought about that for a long moment. Who taught you that, Tim? Nobody, Wade said, figured it out the hard way. That sounds lonely. Wade looked at the boy, straight at him, and something in the look acknowledged that yes, it had been. That was an accurate word, that a 9-year-old had just named something that most adults in Wade Calloway's life had never bothered to try. It was, he said, for a long time it was. The door opened and Brooke came in with a small tray. 2 cups of juice, a pack of crackers, a cup of something warm that turned out to be actual decent tea, which she handed to Wade with the brief look of someone who had heard about the coffee situation and was correcting it. He looked at the tea, then at her. Paul's machine is still broken, she said. I appreciate it. She did a quick eyes check on Tyler's arm. Professional efficient, gentle asked him a few standard questions about pain levels, wrote something on the chart, and then paused at the door before leaving. Tyler, she said, my supervisor just told me your mom sent a message through the nursing staff at Mercy General. She said it carefully, watching his face. She said to tell you she's proud of you. Her exact words were, tell him I'm proud of him and I love him and none of this is his fault. The room went completely still. On Tyler's face did something that had no name in any language. Some complex, simultaneous collapse and solidification of emotion that came from hearing the one specific thing you needed to hear spoken by the one person whose opinion reorganized everything. He didn't cry. He was past the place where crying was available. He just pressed his lips together hard and nodded once and looked at the ceiling for a moment and breathed. Wade looked at the wall. Brooke left quietly. After a long moment, Tyler said very quietly, she knows. Yeah, Wade said, she knows. Another silence. This one different from all the ones before it. Lighter in some way that was hard to name but unmistakable. Then Tyler said, is your brother nice? The pivot was so sudden and so purely 9 years old that Wade almost smiled. Danny, he considered. He's annoying, but yeah, he's good. Does he know about me? He knows enough. What did you tell him? I told him I found a kid who needed somewhere to sleep that wasn't a system. Tyler turned that over. What did he say? He said he'd call his wife. What did she say? Haven't talked to her yet, but Danny's been married to Carol for 11 years, and in 11 years, I have never once seen her turn someone away from her table. So, he shrugged, I'm not concerned. Tyler nodded slowly. Does she cook? And the specificity of the question. The sudden, immediate practicality of a child who has been through an enormous evening and has arrived at the place where an enormous evening meets the ordinary human need for something warm, hit Wade somewhere unexpected. She makes a chicken soup that will change your life, he said. Tyler considered this seriously. It's kind of late for soup. Carol doesn't care what time it is. But for the first time all evening, Tyler smiled. Not the small, relieved smile from earlier. Something more real than that. A glimpse of the actual kid underneath all the weight of the night. Wade watched it happen and felt something in his chest do something it hadn't done in a very long time. And it was Reeves who came in next, and the look on his face was different from all his previous looks. Less official, more uncertain, like a man who has something to say that falls outside the script. He came in and looked at Tyler and then looked at Wade and said, Can I talk to you for a second? They stepped into the corridor. Tyler watched them go with the watchfulness of someone who had spent years interpreting adult departures. The DA's office called, Reeves said. He kept his voice low. They want a formal statement from Tyler. Not tonight, they're not doing anything tonight, but tomorrow or in the next few days. And I need you to understand what that means for the kid. He'll have to go through it again, Wade said. In detail, with a recorder, possibly a child advocate in the room. Reeves looked uncomfortable with the necessity of it. He's been through enough tonight, but the case needs his voice in it. Marcus Webb's attorney is going to be good, the man has money, and the DA needs Tyler's account to be clear and consistent. Wade was quiet for a moment. He'll do it, he said. You seem confident. He sat on that curb instead of going back, Wade said. He chose this whole night. He's going to see it through. A beat. But he's going to need to know somebody's in the room with him. That can be arranged. Not just somebody official, Wade said. Somebody he knows. Reeves looked at him with the particular look of a man recalculating. You're planning on being around for a while, he said. It wasn't an accusation, more like information being confirmed. Somebody needs to be, Wade said. Reeves nodded slowly. Your record is 6 years old, Wade said, and I know what it says, and I know what you have to check. Check it. Do your job. I'd do the same. He held Reeves's gaze without any heat in it, and when you're done, I'll be in that room. Reeves held his gaze for a long moment. Then something in the officer's posture shifted, not relaxed exactly, but reoriented. The shift of a man who has made a judgment and is committing to it. I'll be honest with you, Reeves said. In 15 years on this job, I've seen a lot of people make big gestures in rooms like this and then disappear when the paperwork starts. It's easy to be the hero for one night. He paused. The job isn't one night. No, Wade said. It isn't. You get that better than most. Another long look. Then Reeves stuck out his hand. Wade shook it. I'm going to go check on the unit outside, Reeves said. There's an officer on the corridor all night. You need anything, you come find me or Brooke. He walked away. Oh, Wade stood in the corridor for a moment. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere down the hall, phone rang twice and stopped. The hospital moved around him with its nighttime rhythms quieter than the day, but never quiet, never fully still. He thought about what Reeves had said. The job isn't one night. He thought about how many times in his life he had shown up for one night and counted that as enough. And maybe it had been enough for him in the moral accounting of his own choices. But for the people he'd shown up for and then driven away from, what had it felt like? He thought about Tyler asking where he was going every time he left the room. He turned and went back inside. What did he want? Tyler asked immediately. To do his job, Wade said. He sat back down. They're going to need you to make a formal statement. Not tonight, in a few days. Tyler's expression shifted. About everything. About what you remember, what happened, when it happened. He kept his voice steady. You don't have to do it alone. Will you be there? If you want me there, I want you there. Then I'll be there. Tyler looked at him for a long time, long enough that it had its own weight. You keep saying that, he said. What? That you'll be there, that you'll stay, that you'll come back. He wasn't accusing, he was working something out. Every time you say it, part of me doesn't believe it. And then you come back and part of me starts to believe it a little more. He looked down. I don't know what to do with that. Wade leaned forward. You don't have to do anything with it, he said. You don't have to trust it all at once. You don't have to decide anything about what it means. He kept his voice even and careful and meant every word. I know you've been told things that turned out not to be true. I know words from adults have a track record with you that is not great. So I'm not asking you to just take my word for it. Tyler looked up. I'm asking you to watch, Wade said. That's all. Just watch what I do, and let that be the thing you measure it against. Not what I say, what a guidi is. The boy held his gaze for a long moment, then slowly he nodded. It was 10:20 p.m. when the door opened again, and it wasn't Brooke or Anita or Reeves. It was Danny. Oh, he was a smaller version of Wade, same jaw, same dark eyes, but the edges softer, worn differently. He had engine grease on the side of one hand that he hadn't fully gotten off, and he was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, and the expression of a man who drove 15 minutes at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night because his brother called, and that was simply what you did. He looked at Wade first, then he looked at Tyler. Hi, Danny said, simple, not performing it. Tyler looked at him with the evaluating look of a child measuring a new adult. Hi, Tyler said carefully. Danny came in and sat down in the chair against the wall, not moving it closer, not inserting himself into the center of things, just existing in the room with a quiet ease that was its own kind of reassurance. I'm Danny, he said, Wade's brother. He told me about you, Tyler said. Good things, I hope. He said you were annoying. Danny looked at Wade with an expression of profound satisfaction. He says that to everyone, Danny said. It means he likes you. Wade shook his head slowly. Tyler looked between them. Something in the exchange, the texture of it, the familiarity, the way two people who have known each other for an entire lifetime occupied the same space seemed to reach him somewhere. Does Carol really make chicken soup? He asked. Danny blinked at the specificity of the question. Then he looked at Wade. Told him about the soup, Wade said. Danny turned back to Tyler with an expression of complete seriousness. Carol's chicken soup has healed injuries that doctors said were permanent, he said. I'm not exaggerating. There are people walking in around Millbrook County right now who owe their mobility to that soup. Tyler almost smiled. Almost. It's really late, though, he said. She already started it, Danny said. She started it when Wade called. It's been on the stove for 40 minutes. Tyler stared at him. She started it before she even met me. That's Carol, Danny said simply. You don't have to earn the soup. The soup is just there. And something in that, in the simple, absurd warmth of it, the completely irrational generosity of a woman who started cooking at 9:30 at night for a child she'd never met, broke through the last of the careful control Tyler had maintained for the last 4 hours. Not dramatically, not in the loud way of someone who has held it together and suddenly hasn't. In the quiet way. The way water finds the crack that was always there. His chin went down, his shoulders curved in slightly. And he cried. Silently, the way he'd cried before, not for an audience, not performed, just years of accumulated weight finally finding the exit. Danny looked at Wade. Wade gave the smallest shake of his head, not yet let him and Danny understood the language of his older brother with the fluency of someone who has been reading it since childhood. So they sat there, the three of them, in a hospital room at 10:20 on a Tuesday night, while a 9-year-old boy cried into a hospital blanket because a woman he'd never met had started making him soup before she knew his name. Wade rested one hand on Tyler's shoulder, steady, certain, present, not fixed, not healed, but there, completely unconditionally there. Danny left at 10:45 to go back to Carol and make sure the guest room was ready, and when he stood up to go, he did something that surprised everyone in the room, including himself. He reached over and squeezed Tyler's good shoulder, once brief and firm, the way men in their family communicated things they didn't have vocabulary for, and said, "We'll see you in a little while, okay? Not if, not maybe, we'll see you." Tyler watched him go with the look of someone cataloging evidence. When the door closed, he said to Wade, "He's not annoying." "Give it time," Wade said. Tyler almost smiled again. The almost smile was becoming something Wade recognized, the expression Tyler made when something reached him that he wasn't quite ready to let fully land. The room settled back into its nighttime rhythm. The splinted arm had been re-examined by a doctor who confirmed a clean fracture of the radius, not requiring surgery, which was the one piece of genuinely good news the evening had produced in a medical context. They'd given Tyler something mild for the pain, and it had taken the sharpest edge off, which meant he was tired now, in the particular way that arrives after adrenaline burns through and leaves the body honest about its condition. His eyes were getting heavy. He was fighting it. Wade watched him fight it with the stubborn inefficiency of a child who associates sleep with losing track of things and losing track of things with bad outcomes. "You can sleep," Wade said. "I'm not tired," Tyler said, which was so transparently false that neither of them bothered to address it directly. "I'll be in this chair," Wade said. "What if something happens? Then I'll wake you up, but nothing's going to happen." "You don't know that." "Tyler," he kept his voice steady and low. "Marcus is in custody. There's a police officer in the corridor. Brooke is 20 feet away. Danny's coming back. Your mom sent you a message saying she's proud of you." He let each fact land separately. "You are the safest you have been in a very long time. Tonight of all nights, you can sleep." A long pause. Tyler's eyes moved to the door, then back to Wade. "You'll stay in the chair," he said. "I'll stay in the chair. Even if I fall asleep and it takes a while, even then." Tyler looked at him one more time with the full weight of everything he'd learned and unlearned and was still in the process of learning about whether adults meant what they said. Then he let out a long breath and shifted down against the pillow and closed his eyes. He was asleep in 4 minutes. Wade watched him sleep for a moment. Then he leaned back in the plastic chair as far as the plastic chair would allow, which was not far, and he sat with the quiet of the room and the sound of Tyler's breathing and the particular stillness of a hospital at 11 o'clock at night. He thought about a lot of things. He thought about his father's hands, which had been large like his own and had known how to build things and break things with equal fluency. He thought about the particular silence of a house where everyone had learned not to make noise at the wrong moments. He thought about the age he had been when he understood that the silence was not peace, it was strategy. Survival dressed up as calm. Well, he thought about the first time he'd thrown a punch back, 17 years old, and the look on his father's face, not pain, not anger, surprise. Like he had genuinely never considered that this outcome was possible. Where Wade had left 3 days later with his duffel bag and Danny's address in a different city written on a piece of paper. He had spent 15 years moving through a world that classified him by appearance before anything else, and had eventually stopped arguing with the classification and started occupying it deliberately. If people were going to be afraid of him either way, he could at least make that fear work in specific directions. It was not the life he would have chosen with full information, but it had made him someone who could sit in a parking lot at eye level with a frightened child and not flinch, and who could stand in a hospital corridor with his hand on the wall beside a room and mean it when he said nobody is getting through that door, and who could be in a plastic chair at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday in a town he'd only stopped in because of a tire, and still, without any real question about it, be exactly where he needed to be. Maybe some things shaped you for something even when they were doing their damage. He was still thinking about that when the door opened quietly and Brooke came in to check Tyler's vitals. She moved with the particular practiced quietness of someone who has learned to work around sleeping patients without disturbing them, her movements efficient and minimal. And she did the check and made the notation and looked at Wade and gestured toward the corridor with a small tilt of her head. And he followed her out, pulling the door almost closed behind him. "He's okay," she said quietly, meaning Tyler's numbers, his arm, his basic physical condition. "I know," Wade said. She looked at him with the direct look she'd been using on him all evening, the one that didn't dress things up. "You need to eat something," she said. "I'm fine." Wade. The use of his name, just his name with that particular weight she put on it. "You've been here since 7 o'clock. You have had 1 cup of bad coffee and 1 cup of tea. It's 11 p.m. I'm telling you, as someone who has watched people run on adrenaline all evening, you need to eat something before it catches up with you." He looked at her. "There's a vending machine at the end of the north corridor," she said. "I'll stand outside that door for 10 minutes. You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," she said. "I'm doing it anyway. Go." He went. But the vending machine offered a limited inventory of things that approximated food, and he made his selections with the pragmatism of a man who had eaten worse in worse circumstances and came back down on the corridor with 2 bags of peanut crackers and a bottle of water to find Brooke exactly where she said she'd be, leaning against the wall beside room 12 with her arms folded and her eyes tracking the corridor in both directions. She looked at what he'd selected. "Best I could do," he said. "I'm not judging," she said. She looked like she was slightly judging. He opened one of the cracker packs and they stood there in the corridor, in the particular companionable quiet of 2 people who have been through something difficult together and have arrived at the far side of the worst of it and are still standing. "How long have you been a nurse?" he asked. 14 years. "You always work nights?" "Rotates. This is my 3rd consecutive night shift this week." She said it without complaint, just fact. "It doesn't usually look like this." "What does it usually look like?" "Quieter. Older patients mostly. A lot of follow-up care monitoring, discharge paperwork." She paused. "The ER gets the dramatic nights. Pediatric gets the heartbreaking ones. I'm in both tonight, which is not the rotation I expected." "You could have clocked out," he said. She turned to look at him. "So could you." The parallel landed exactly where it was meant to. They were quiet for a moment. "My ex-husband used to say I cared too much," she said. Not bitter, just information. "Said I brought the job home. Said I needed to learn professional distance." "What happened to the marriage?" Wade asked. "He found someone with professional distance," she said. "A beat. And I decided he was right that we weren't compatible, just wrong about which one of us needed to change." Wade ate a cracker. "Good call." "Took me a while to see it that way." She looked at the door to room 12. "You have anyone back in Tulsa?" "Chapter brothers," he said. "That's not what I asked." He looked at her sideways. "No," he said. "Nobody like that, not for a while." She nodded without making it a larger thing than it was. "Danny seems good," she said. "Danny is the thing that turned out right," Wade said. "I don't know how. We had the same house, the same father, the same everything. And Danny came out decent, easy. The kind of person other people want to be around. He looked at the floor. I used to think that was luck. Now I think Danny just decided early that he was going to be that person, and he worked at it every day and never gave himself permission to stop. And you, she said. I decided I was what people thought I was, he said. Easier than fighting every room. And now, the question sat there. Wade looked at the door where Tyler was sleeping. Now I don't know, he said. Tonight's made me a little less sure about some things I thought I had settled. Before Brooke could answer, Anita Green came around the corner at a pace that was controlled but fast, and the look on her face immediately tightened the atmosphere of the corridor. We have a situation, she said. Wade straightened. Not Marcus, Anita said quickly, reading his expression. Marcus is in custody. That hasn't changed. It's Tyler's mother. What happened? Brooke said. She was already in professional mode, posture shifted, attention focused. She's fine, Anita said. She's stable. The medical situation hasn't changed. But Anita stopped, started again. And for the first time all evening, she looked like the 19 years of this work had sat down on her all at once. She told the staff at Mercy General that she doesn't want Tyler placed anywhere tonight. Not even temporarily. She's demanding he be brought to her. She's in a hospital bed, Wade said. I know that, with a fractured orbital socket and cracked ribs. I know that too, Anita said. The medical staff have told her it's not possible, and she is not accepting that answer. She's been asking for him for hours, and she thought placement meant tomorrow, and now someone told her tonight, and she is a breath. She is a mother who has been separated from her child after a very traumatic event, and she is not being rational about logistics right now because she is not thinking about logistics. She is thinking about Tyler. The corridor was very quiet for a moment. Brooke spoke first. Is she well enough to speak to him by phone? Anita blinked. They haven't. She pulled out her phone. That should have been the first call. Why hasn't anyone? It's late, Brooke said. People stop thinking of the obvious things when they're tired and managing too many moving parts. She was already moving toward the nurse's station. I can coordinate with Mercy General's night staff. If her vitals are stable and the attending approves it, there is no medical reason she can't speak to her son. She was on the phone in under a minute. Wade and Anita stood into the corridor. How's he doing? Anita asked, meaning Tyler. Asleep, Wade said. Good. She looked at the door. I have to be honest with you about something. Go ahead. When I called my supervisor earlier about the placement flexibility, she chose her words. There was some pushback. About you specifically. About your background. Wade looked at her without expression. And I want you to know that I push back on the pushback, she said. What I observed tonight in that room is the basis of my professional recommendation, and my professional recommendation stands. But I also want to be transparent with you that there are people in this system who are going to look at your record and your affiliation, and they're going to have concerns. They should check their concerns, Wade said, not aggressively, just factually. Some of them will, Anita said. Some of them won't, and I want you to be prepared for that. She held his gaze. Because if you're going to be present for this child in the days and weeks ahead, and based on everything I've seen tonight, I believe you're going to hit institutional friction. It's not fair. I'm not telling you it's fair. I'm telling you it's real. Wade was quiet for a moment. I've been hitting institutional friction since I was 19 years old, he said. It hasn't stopped me yet. Anita looked at him steadily. Then she nodded once, the nod of someone who has said what needed saying and has confidence in the response. Brooke came back from the nurse's station. Mercy General's night attending approved it, she said. She's alert. She's emotionally distressed, but medically stable, and they've got a phone at her bedside. She looked at Wade. We're going to need to wake Tyler up. Wade pushed off the wall. I'll do it. He went back into room 12 and crossed to the bed and put his hand on Tyler's good shoulder and said his name quietly twice. Tyler came awake the way children who have learned to sleep lightly come awake fast. Eyes open, oriented immediately, the body already assessing before the mind fully arrived. What happened? Tyler said. Nothing bad, Wade said immediately. Nothing bad. Listen to me. Tyler looked at him and waited with the particular focused trust of someone who has decided to measure by actions and has so far received consistent returns on that measurement. Your mom wants to talk to you, Wade said, right now on the phone. Man, The change in Tyler's face was total and immediate. Every careful, managed expression he'd been maintaining all evening simply ceased. What was left underneath was 9 years old and completely unguarded and absolutely desperate, in the way only a child who loves their parent and has been separated from them under terrible circumstances can be desperate. Right now, he said. Right now, Wade said. Tyler was sitting up before the words finished. Brooke came in with the phone, a hospital landline receiver already connected to Mercy General, and she sat on the edge of the bed and held it out to Tyler and said, "Just say hello. She knows it's you." Tyler took the receiver with his good hand. He held it for 1 second before he put it to his ear. "Mom," he said. And whatever came through that phone, whatever his mother's voice sounded like in that moment, damaged and relieved and present, and it hit Tyler like a physical thing. His whole body seemed to exhale at once. His shoulders dropped, his chin went down, and he said very quietly, "I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay," which was perhaps the most selfless sentence spoken in St. Francis Hospital that entire night, because he was saying it clearly for her benefit, to give her the thing she needed most, even while his own eyes were running silently down his face. Wade stepped bad. Brooke stepped back. They gave the room to Tyler and his mother and the phone line between them. In the corridor, Brooke stood with her back against the wall and pressed the heels of her hands briefly against her eyes. 14 years, she said, and that still gets me. Wade stood beside her and said nothing because there was nothing adequate to say, and he had enough sense to know it. They could hear Tyler's voice through the door, not the words, just the murmur of it, the particular rhythm of a child talking to the person they belonged to back and forth, the oldest conversation in the world. It went on for 11 minutes. When the door opened, Tyler's face was wet and composed and completely different from the face he had been wearing when they left the room. Not happy, or exactly the situation had not changed. His mother was still in a hospital 20 minutes away, and his arm was still broken, and Marcus Webb was still real but reorganized. Anchored. The face of someone who has touched the thing that matters most and confirmed it is still there. "She said to thank you," Tyler said to Wade. Wade shook his head slightly. "She doesn't need to." "She said to tell you specifically," Tyler said. "She said to tell the man who stayed." The man who stayed. Wade looked at the floor for a moment. "Tell her to focus on getting better," he said. "I told her," Tyler said. "She said she will." He paused. "She cried." "That's okay," Wade said. "I know," Tyler said. "I told her that too." A beat. "I told her what you said, about Brave being scared and doing it anyway." Wade looked at him. "She said she's going to remember that," Tyler said. Anita appeared at the end of the corridor, moving fast again, and for a split second the temperature dropped, but her face was carrying something different this time. Not alarm, something closer to the expression people wear when they've been fighting an upstream battle, and the current has just unexpectedly shifted. "The DA's office made a call," she said. "Not tomorrow, right now. Tonight a victim advocate has been assigned to Tyler's mother. And..." She paused in a way that was deliberate, the pause of someone delivering information they want to land correctly. The advocate flagged something in Marcus Webb's file that the Creek County case had missed. A prior from 8 years ago. Different state, different name used it at the time. She looked at all of them. The man who has been living in that house for 2 years has done this before. Different family, different child. And the corridor absorbed that. "Did they find the other family?" Brooke asked. "They're looking," Anita said. "The advocate is coordinating with 2 other county offices tonight." She exhaled. What Tyler did tonight, sitting on that curb instead of going back, it didn't just change tonight. It may have opened a case that was waiting to be opened for 8 years. Nobody spoke for a moment. Tyler had been listening. He was 9 years old, and he had been listening and processing with the same quiet precision he brought to everything. And now he said very carefully, there was someone else. Anita looked at him, the look of an adult deciding how much truth a child can hold. She decided to give him the real answer. "Possibly," she said. "We don't know yet. But what you did tonight matters beyond tonight, Tyler. I want you to know that." Tyler was quiet. Then he said, "I want to go to Danny's." It was such a sudden and practical pivot, that it took everyone a half second to adjust. Yeah, Wade said. Yeah. Tyler looked at him with the clear eyes of someone who has processed what they needed to process and arrived at the next necessary thing. I'm tired and my arm hurts, and I want to go to the place with the soup. Anita made a sound that might have been a laugh that she had to work to contain. Brooke turned slightly away. Wade looked at the ceiling, raping. I'll get the discharge paperwork, Brooke said. Give me 20 minutes. Honest, the 20 minutes turned into 40 because paperwork always did, but Tyler bore it with more patience than might have been expected from a 9-year-old at 11:30 p.m. who had been through what he'd been through. He sat in the bed and watched television with the loose, half-present attention of exhaustion, and when Wade sat in the chair beside him and said nothing in particular, Tyler leaned over slightly until his good shoulder was just barely making contact with Wade's arm. Not dramatic, not announced, just a small adjustment of proximity. I'm here. You're here. Wade didn't move away. When Reeves' wives came in one final time with the paperwork confirmed and the overnight officer briefed and the immediate procedural pieces in place, he stood at the doorway and looked at the two of them, the man and the boy, the plastic chair and the hospital bed, the slight overlap of one shoulder against one arm, and he did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, "You need anything else from me tonight, you call the non-emergency line and ask for Reeves. I'll be on until 6. Thank you, Wade said. Don't thank me, Reeves said. He looked at Tyler. You did good, son. Real good. Tyler nodded once with the serious face of someone receiving information they intend to keep. Reeves left. The discharge process involved a wheelchair that Tyler accepted only after Wade pointed out that it was hospital policy and therefore a bureaucratic requirement, rather than a commentary on Tyler's ability to walk, which was the framing that made it acceptable. Brooke pushed the chair and Wade walked beside it, and Anita walked on the other side, and they went down the corridor together toward the exit, passing the nurse's station, where two night staff looked up and then looked at each other with the expression of people who have been briefed on an unusual situation and are seeing its conclusion. Paul, the security guard, was still at his post near the entrance. He had brought the coffee. He had revised his assessment. When the small procession came through his area, he stood up slightly straighter and looked at Tyler and said, with the gruff sincerity of a man who has limited practice at sincerity, but means it fully, "You take care of yourself, young man." Tyler looked at him with those clear, evaluating eyes. "Thank you for the coffee," Tyler said to Paul, which was not something Tyler had witnessed directly, but had apparently absorbed from the ambient information of the evening. Paul looked briefly startled. Then he looked at Wade. Then he nodded once at both of them. At the entrance, Brooke stopped the wheelchair and crouched down to Tyler's level. "You have my direct line," she said, "through Anita. You can call and ask how you're doing and I will answer." She looked at him steadily. "You are going to be okay, Tyler. Not today. Not all at once, but you are going to be okay." Tyler looked at her with those serious eyes. "You really think so?" he asked. "I've seen a lot of nights like this," she said, "and I know what the ones that turn out okay look like in the middle." She held his gaze. "They look exactly like this." Tyler nodded. He reached out with his good hand and touched her arm once briefly in the way that children reach for things that matter when they don't have the words. Then he looked up at Wade. "Ready," Wade said. "Yeah," Tyler said. Oh, Wade pushed open the exit door, and the cold hit immediately, the deep October cold that had settled in since sunset, the kind with texture and weight to it, the kind that reminds you that the world outside controlled environments operates on its own terms, regardless of what you have been through inside. Tyler inhaled sharply. "Cold," he said. "Yeah," Wade said. "Is Danny's house warm?" "Danny keeps his thermostat at 72 year-round," Wade said, "which is excessive but not our problem tonight." The parking lot was mostly empty at this hour. Wade's Harley sat under the sodium light where he'd left it 7 hours ago. Tyler looked at it as they crossed toward Danny's truck. Danny had come back for the discharge and was waiting with the engine running and the heat already on. Tyler stopped walking. He looked at the motorcycle. "Is that yours?" he asked. "Yeah." Tyler studied it. "It's big." "It is. Have you had it a long time?" 12 years. Tyler looked at it a moment longer. Then he looked at Wade with an expression that contained approximately 17 things at once. "Sometime," he said carefully, not asking, not assuming, just leaving a door open with the particular precise caution of a child who has learned to manage hope by not stating it as expectation. Sometime when everything is okay. Wade looked at him. Sometime, he said, when everything is okay. Tyler nodded once, satisfied, complete. He got into Danny's truck. Wade stood in the parking lot for a moment before following. He looked back at St. Francis Hospital, the lit windows, the entrance where Brooke was still visible, just inside the glass, the ordinary institutional face of a place where ordinary and extraordinary happen simultaneously every single night. Brooke raised one hand, not a wave exactly, just acknowledgement. I see you. You were here. It mattered. He raised one hand back. Then he got in the truck. Danny pulled out of the parking lot without fanfare. The heater was running and Tyler was in the back seat and the truck smelled like engine grease and a faint trace of whatever Carol had been cooking for the last hour carried on Danny's jacket. Is it far? Tyler asked. 12 minutes, Danny said. Is the soup still warm? Carol would never serve cold soup, Danny said with the conviction of a man speaking about a fundamental law of his household. Tyler leaned back in the seat and closed his eyes. In the front, Danny glanced at Wade. Wade looked back at him. 14 years of complicated brotherhood compressed into a single sideways look that communicated, I know. I see it too. Don't make it weird. Danny looked back at the road, made it weird immediately by putting one hand briefly on Wade's shoulder and squeezing once hard and then removing it without saying anything. Wade looked out the window. The October night moved past. The town of Millbrook, Oklahoma fell away behind them. The road ahead was dark and specific and going somewhere particular. In the backseat, Tyler was already asleep before the 12 minutes were up. Carol Voss was exactly what Wade had said she was, and Tyler figured that out in the first 30 seconds. She was standing in the doorway when Danny's truck pulled up, and she didn't wait for them to come to her. She came down the front steps and opened the back door of the truck herself and looked at Tyler with the direct, uncomplicated warmth of someone who had already decided that this child belonged here tonight and wasn't interested in making it complicated. Hi, she said. I'm Carol. You hungry? Tyler looked at her with his clear, evaluating eyes, the same measuring look he gave every new adult, checking, weighing. Then he said, yes, ma'am. Carol smiled. Good, come on. She didn't touch him, she didn't hug him, or pat his head, or do any of the things adults do to children that presume a permission that hasn't been granted yet. She just turned and walked back up the steps and left the door open behind her, which was the most inviting thing she could have done, not pulling him in, just leaving the way open. Tyler got out of the truck and followed her. Wade and Danny exchanged a look over the roof of the truck. 11 years, Danny said quietly. I know, Wade said. Inside the house was warm the way Danny had promised, not just temperature, but the kind of warm that comes from a place being genuinely lived in and cared for. There were photographs on the walls and a worn rug in the hallway, and on the kitchen table, there was a bowl already set out and a spoon and a piece of bread on a plate beside it, and the soup was there real and present, just like Danny had said it would be. Tyler sat down at the table and looked at it. You don't have to eat all of it, Carol said, setting a glass of water beside the bowl. Just eat what you want. Tyler picked up the spoon. He took one bite. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just sat there with the spoon in his hand and his eyes doing something careful and private. Then he said very quietly, it's really good. Thank you, Carol said. Simple. No performance. Mush. Wade sat down across from Tyler. Danny leaned against the counter. Carol moved around the kitchen with the particular ease of someone in their own space who is not making a production of anything, and the ordinariness of it, the soup, the table, the kitchen light, the sound of spoons and breathing was so far from the hospital corridor, and the police reports, and the voices in the hallway that it seemed to belong to a different category of reality. Tyler ate half the bowl, then he sat back and looked at Wade. I talked to my mom for 11 minutes, he said. I know. I counted. I figured you had. Tyler turned his spoon over in his good hand. She said she's going to get better and then she's going to fix everything. He paused. She said that before. The statement landed with the weight of all its history behind it. Wade looked at him carefully. What do you think is different this time? He asked. Not leading, genuinely asking, treating the question as one Tyler was capable of answering for himself. Tyler thought about it seriously. She knows I told, he said finally. Before nobody knew. She could pretend it wasn't happening because there were no words for it yet. But now there are words. There's he searched. There's official words, police words, and she can't pretend when there are official words. It was the most sophisticated piece of analysis Wade had heard all evening. From anyone. That's right, he said. Is that enough, Tyler asked, for her to actually fix it? And a hard question. An honest one, the kind that deserved a real answer and not a comfortable one. I don't know, Wade said. I think it gives her a better chance than she had yesterday. I think she loves you, and that's real. Whether love is enough to make someone change, that's something different from love. That takes work. Hard work. Every day. He held the boy's gaze. But tonight is not the night to solve that. Tonight you eat the soup. Tomorrow we figure out the next thing. Tyler absorbed that, nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Carol showed Tyler to the guest room at 10 past midnight, and Wade heard their voices down the hall, Carol's low and calm, Tyler asking one question and then another, with the methodical thoroughness of a child checking that the space was safe, and then quiet, and then Carol's footsteps coming back down the hall alone. She came into the kitchen where Wade was still sitting at the table with a second cup of coffee. Real coffee properly made, and Danny was across from him, and she sat down and looked at Wade with the frank look of a woman who has been married to a Calloway long enough to speak plainly. How are you? She said. Fine, Wade said. Wade. He looked at her. Tired, he said, and something else I don't have a word for yet. Carol nodded. That was enough for her. She didn't push it. He asked me if the door locked from the inside, she said. Wade closed his eyes briefly. I showed him, she said, and I showed him the window, and I showed him the phone on the nightstand, and I told him that Danny and I were 20 feet down the hall, and if he needed anything in the night, he just had to call. She paused. He said thank you 3 times, 3 separate times, like he was afraid once wasn't going to register. Nobody at the table said anything for a moment. He'll be okay here tonight, Danny said. Not a question. He'll be okay here tonight, Carol confirmed. Wade drank his coffee. Then his phone buzzed on the table. He looked at it. Unknown number, Millbrook area code. He almost didn't answer. Then he did. Calloway, he said. Mr. Calloway, a woman's voice. Professional, but with something underneath it that was not professional at all. My name is Sandra Webb, Tyler's mother. Wade sat up straight. Danny saw his posture change and went still. Ms. Webb, Wade said carefully. I know it's late, she said. They gave me your number through the social worker. I hope that's... It's fine, he said. Are you okay? A pause. A breath that had effort behind it, the careful breathing of someone managing pain. Not yet, she said, but I'm going to be. She said it like a decision, not a hope. I needed to call because... Another pause. There's something I need to say to you that I couldn't say through Tyler because it wasn't for Tyler to carry. Okay, Wade said. I knew, she said. The 2 words landed in the kitchen like something falling from a height. Not all of it, she continued, her voice controlled and deliberate and clearly costing her something. I told myself I didn't know. I was very practiced at telling myself things. But there were nights, there were signs, and I chose the easier story. A breath. Tyler sat on a curb with a broken arm rather than go back to that house. My 9-year-old son made a braver choice tonight than I've made in 2 years. Wade said nothing. He let her have the space. I don't know what you did for him tonight, she said. He told me some of it. I think there's more he didn't say. Her voice tightened for a moment, and then she held it. But I need you to know that whatever comes next, whatever happens with the case with placement, with all of it, I am going to do the work. Not for a judge. Not because I have to. Because my son sat on that curb, and he deserves a mother who is worth what he did tonight. Wade looked at the table. Ms. Webb, he said. Sandra. Sandra. He chose his words the same way he'd chosen them with Tyler, not the comfortable version, the true one. I believe you mean that, and I'm going to hold on to that belief. But I want to say something to you that I said to Tyler, and I want you to hear it the same way. She waited. Just watch what you do, he said. Don't measure it by what you intend. Measure it by what you do every day. A pause. Tyler's learned to measure by actions. He's good at it, better than most adults. He'll know. A silence. He said you told him brave is being scared and doing it anyway, she said. Yeah. I'm terrified, she said, of all of it, the recovery, the court, starting over. Her voice steadied, but I'm doing it anyway. Then that's brave, Wade said. Another silence. Different from the first one. Quieter, more resolved. Thank you, she said, for stopping. Somebody had to, Wade said. No, she said. That's the thing. They didn't. Most people don't. You did. She ended the call. Wade set the phone face down on the table. He sat with his hands around the coffee cup. Danny and Carol were both watching him, and neither of them asked what the call was. They waited. His mother, Wade said. Danny exhaled slowly. She's going to fight, Wade said. I think she means it. Carol looked at her hands on the table. What happens now with Tyler? With all the legal pieces? Anita's coordinating placement review in the morning, Wade said. With the mother's situation and the case against Webb, the court is going to move fast. Temporary placement while Sandra recovers. Then a reunification process depending on assessment. He paused. It could be weeks, might be longer. He can stay here, Carol said. She said it with no preamble, no discussion, no consulting Danny with a look. Just said it the way people say things that were already decided before the conversation started. Danny looked at her, not surprised, just the look of a man confirming what he already knew about the person he married. Carol, Wade said. I mean it, she said. We have the room. I'm home. The school district here is good. She held Wade's gaze with the particular steadiness that had probably been the making of his brother for 11 years. He doesn't need another system, Wade. He needs a kitchen table. Wade looked at her for a long moment. He thought about all the things that would need to happen. The paperwork, the approval, the background checks, the court's involvement, Anita's recommendation, Sandra Webb's rights and recovery and timeline. He thought about all the institutional friction Anita had warned him about, and all the hoops and all the forms and all the people in official positions who would look at this situation and see complications. He thought about a boy who counted 11 minutes on the phone with his mother because every minute mattered. I'll call Anita in the morning, he said. Carol nodded once. Done. Danny reached across the table and refilled Wade's coffee without being asked. At 2 a.m, Wade was still at the kitchen table when the house had gone quiet around him. Danny and Carol to bed, the sounds of the neighborhood settling into its nighttime rhythm, and he was doing something he hadn't done in a long time, just sitting without moving toward anything, without the next thing pulling at him. He had his phone in his hand. He looked at the piece of paper he'd folded into his jacket pocket outside St. Francis Hospital. He unfolded it. It's Brooks' number, written in the quick, practical handwriting of someone who makes decisions and acts on them. He looked at it for a while. Then he typed a text. Simple. Short. He's asleep. Carol's soup delivered on its promise. Thank you for tonight. He set the phone on the table. It buzzed 40 seconds later. Glad he's safe. You did good, Wade. He read it twice. Then he put the phone face down on the table and sat with the quiet of Danny's kitchen and the weight of the day that was now technically yesterday and the particular feeling of being exactly where something had needed him to be. He was still sitting there when he heard a sound from the hallway. Small, careful footsteps. The specific sound of someone trying not to wake anyone up. Tyler appeared in the kitchen doorway in Danny's old Oklahoma Sooners hoodie, which was approximately 4 sizes too large for him, the sleeves hanging past his hands, the hem reaching his knees. He looked at Wade. Wade looked at him. Couldn't sleep, Wade said. Woke up, Tyler said. He said it without apology or explanation, the simple fact of it. He had woken up and checked the room and found it real and safe, and still come to confirm the more important thing. I'm here, Wade said. Tyler looked at him for a moment. Then he came and sat down in the chair across from where Danny had been sitting, pulling his feet up under him in the oversized hoodie, and he put his good arm on the table and looked at Wade with the clear, direct gaze that had been one of the first things Wade noticed about him on that parking lot curb. I've been thinking, Tyler said. About what? About what you said, that you wish someone had stayed for you. He held Wade's gaze. Did it help tonight? Did it help you doing it for someone else? The question was so precise, it stopped Wade completely. Well, he thought about it honestly. Thought about the parking lot and the hospital and the corridor and the plastic chair and the phone call from Sandra Webb and sitting at this table at 2 in the morning in his brother's kitchen with a 9-year-old across from him in an oversized hoodie. Yeah, he said, it did. How? Tyler asked. Because, Wade said slowly, for a long time I've been the man people cross the street to avoid. And tonight I was the man a kid asked to come with him. He looked at Tyler directly. That changes something. I don't know exactly what yet, but something. Tyler considered this. I'm glad I asked you, he said. So am I. What if you'd said no? I didn't. But what if you had? Wade looked at him. I wasn't going to, he said. I think I knew that when I crossed that parking lot. Before you even spoke, some things you do because they're the obvious right thing, and the fact that it's hard doesn't change what it is. Tyler absorbed that. Wade, he said. Yeah. I don't want to go to a different placement, he said. It wasn't a demand. It was honest and quiet and stated the way Tyler stated everything important without decoration, just the truth of it delivered directly. I want to stay here with Danny and Carol, and he stopped. And where you can find me. The last phrase was so careful, so specifically chosen. Not where you live because Tyler understood Wade lived somewhere else and had a life somewhere else. Just where you can find me, leave that door open. That reasonable, manageable, not too much to ask thing. Wade felt it find every part of him. Carol's already talking to Anita about it, he said. In the morning. Tyler blinked. She is. A pause. Carol decided that already. Wade said before you finish the soup. Tyler looked down at the table. His jaw worked once. He blinked several times in quick succession. Okay, he said, very small. Okay, Wade said. Tyler sat there for another minute without speaking, the kitchen quiet around them, and then he looked up with one more question. The last one, the one underneath all the others. Are you going to come back? He said. After Tulsa, after whatever you have to do, are you going to come back and check on me? Wade looked at him for a long moment, not calculating, not hedging, just making sure the answer he was about to give was the one he was prepared to stand behind every single day going forward, because this boy measured by actions and had earned a promise that would be kept. Yeah, Wade said, I'm coming back. Tyler held his gaze, checking it against everything he knew, everything he'd learned, all his careful, hard-won measurement of what adults did versus what they said. Then he nodded, slow, certain. Okay, he said. He unfolded himself from the chair and padded back down the hall in the enormous hoodie, and Wade listened to the quiet sound of the guest room door closing softly, and then the house was still. Wade sat at the kitchen tables with his coffee going cold, and Brooks' number folded in his pocket, and the sound of his brother sleeping 20 feet away, and a piece of himself that had been unaccounted for longer than he could name finally quietly returned to the right location. He had come through Millbrook, Oklahoma because of a soft tire. He was leaving it as someone's answer to a question they had been asking for 9 years. Oh, some things you do because they're the obvious right thing. The fact that it costs you something doesn't change what it is. And the fact that you almost drove past that, you almost let the familiar gravity of your own life carry you straight through without stopping, doesn't diminish what happened when you didn't. Wade Calloway stopped. He crossed the parking lot. He stayed. And that in the end was the whole of it. The only thing that mattered. The only thing that would matter when Tyler Webb looked back on this night from 10 years forward, or 20 or 40. Not the police reports or the courtrooms or the system doing its necessary grinding work, but the simple, irreducible fact that on a cold Tuesday evening in October, a stranger stopped. And nobody who needed him was left alone.